Good day everyone, Warneverchanges here. There have been some changes to the Warsaken Blitz beta client recently, so I will cover those briefly. One of the most useful ones is for those that are playing games. Now there is an option to just click past on the game code and you can get it copied, so you can immediately paste it on Discord if you want to play a game. Another thing you can see now is that the deck experience value is a lot lower than it used to be, because this now shows the win experience, which we will get on the final client if you win a match. So it's a lot lower than your total deck experience value of your cards, so don't worry about that, that's entirely normal. And the thing I intend to cover more in depth here is the new feature for auto-building a deck. So first off, everyone who has played Warsaken Blitz knows that you need 60 cards, 3 copies minimum of each card for paper cards, preferably 4, as well as a unique copy of a territory card, 4 total, so they all have to do different, and any leader. Besides that, you just have to pay attention to these moral gain or loss values here on the top card box, which I'm hovering around, and make sure that your leader value, the moral value, is at maximum 20 or under if you want to play a Warsaken Blitz game. But if you're a new player, you don't have to worry about that. You can just use the new auto build feature of the deck. Just make sure you have an empty deck slot like I have now, since I delete my Bancroft here. Just click edit, and then there is an option under the deck's new deck that is auto build. There is a standard variation here. You can play with it if you want to, but since Blitz is the only playable client at the moment, I recommend going for Warsaken Blitz. And then there are various styles here. Basically, Espionage and Blitz are in the deck, and everything else is more or less balance or force heavy deck. Raw power being mostly force heavy. For everyone, I personally recommend you to play around, but start with the raw power decks because they are the simple ones. And the team tells it all. For example, if you pick mass destruction, you get a bit more VMDs, 3 to be exact, and the other ones are mostly team changes, so you get more or less the same deck, except with a different team. Of course, this depends on what cards you have. If you don't have enough cards, or your card experience values are interesting, you can get slightly different variations. For some reason, the air power here under the auto build Blitz and raw power does not actually have air units, but I recommend until they fix it, you to actually start with it, and I will tell you why in a moment. You get a deck called Perfectly Balanced with a wall phase here. And the interesting part about this deck is that not only it's not air powered, but it has all the card variations in it. Of all the deck builds, I noticed that this is the only one that has every single card types in it. So I recommend using this for now until they change it as a structure to make your own deck if you want to make it fast. Then you are making changes, you can just go, for example, I don't want to have any mothers on my deck. I can just change that. But before we get to that, the most important thing everyone, both veteran and new players alike, have to do with this old decks is go to the top and look at your territories. In Warsaken Blitz, when you lose a territory, you get the penalty of the moral value of the territory here. So in this case, it's 8 moral on the pawn's research center, which you can open. If you click the card, you get this eye icon here, which highlights the card. And the moral value you have at maximum is the moral value of a leader. In case of my Roman Volkov here, it's 17. So I would be hitting 0 moral, more or less by just losing 3 territories, because the territory values are so high. So what you want to do is you want to replace these default territories, which the game seems to be putting on the highest end of the moral loss, because they have the highest experience values, with something more acceptable. In my case, I will just get rid of the pawns, ball blue, and the excise trap. Just click the empty button here and just because the territories, this alt is preset, so it's easier for us to assign them. And just pick territories with the lowest moral loss. My usual get-go combination is not Antonia reduction site, because it has only 3 moral penalty, which is low. This would be total hate. And then I will be finding the Rust Hinterlands, which is the possibly most popular territory on Warsaken Blitz, because it has only 1 moral penalty if eliminated. So these 2 cards alone have less moral penalty than, let's say, this card in entirely. So it's a much better starting position. Though it's not always best to just go for the lowest moral values, because the lowest moral values will of course have least experience. Okay, so my total lost moral here is -1 from the territory, so I start with the 16, and total of 9 from here, so I still have a bit of space here for something a bit heftier if I wanted experience. Just for simplicity's sake, I will just add both Karma Sunny here. So I will have a nifty low moral territory list here. And while Volkov is a good leader, I personally dislike leaders that have less than 20 starting moral on Blitz, so I'll just remove Volkov and pick something with higher moral value. Since I have a territory that reduces my moral value by 1, I will pick a leader that has more moral value than 20. So in this case, I think I will pick Ziana, just for why not, and add her to the main deck. And now I will have a deck that has takes the -1 here, exactly 20 starting moral, and at Burnet will more or less have to take out every single territory in my Legion to win the game. But there's something I would like to show you, which is a good thing to keep in mind when you are fixing the territories. There is a new resource limit on Warsaken, so if I, let's say, take off the Moldavtania here and put on a card called Hoard of Resources, which has the 3 generic values. These resource production values don't have any function for Warsaken Blitz, but since they, by design choice, want to keep the gameplay of Warsaken Blitz and standard similar, and they want to have the same win conditions and same limitations for both, besides they, of course, they Blitz only by their limitation. So now I have a total of 6 generic resource production, and it says exceeded resource type limit. Your territories are generating an excess of identical resources and exceeds the type limit. So this is what it refers to. These territories have production for generic resources, and I have 6 production total. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going past the 5 limit. So you can just fix it by adding something else here. And they mostly made that change so people can do less cheesy builds on Warsaken standard. I, for example, had some test builds that only use equipment territories that where, let's just say, the nerfs were merited in this case. Then, as I mentioned, I don't want to have any wonders on this deck, so I can do some alterations here, and you can do any alterations you want to do yourself. It's entirely up to you. I'm just go a bit slower now and explain what I do. So first off, I will get rid of these weather cards. I will just click the weather card here and click the touchpin icon on the corner, and it will delete the weather card. And as you can see, there are multiple different types of weather cards here, because my collection has multiple different types of cards, and the system has assigned them based on the highest experience value from the top. So this black camera version of ideal conditions here is the first one on the list, and it just assigned the other ones afterwards. So if I wanted to add some weathers here again, I would just click the empty spot here and pick a card. Let's say Tsunami here, which is my highest rarity weather card. Then I need more copies of it. The old method, adding cards, would be just click this empty spot here and add them manually. Or I can now do just click this card and just pick as many copies I want. 3 is the minimum for Blitz. I recommend 4. For standard, there is no such limit. And then I just click something, let's say the card here. it puts up this pop-up which says use other variations. You don't have enough copies of this variation, but you have other available in your collection. Would you like to use them instead? Just pick yes. And now it automatically picks them from the rarity order. So this one was my second rarest dynamic card, so it is added here. And that's how you end up with multiple different types of copies. If you instead would want to just use a single type, just let's say in this case of this tsunami, which I actually don't have center copies of. I keep giving away my weather cards, so that's a problem for me. Okay, so this one has full arts, four copies of them. So I add it to the deck, and if I just click to add 4 copies here, and just click it, it doesn't give me the pop-up because I already have these 4 same copies of this card. It only brings the menu up if you need more copies and you do not have the same rarity. Okay, more cards are interesting if you build around them, but they are not personally my style, so I'm just going to remove this more cards here. One entirely fine if you just want to have one card to surprise your opponent. I kind of like buildings, so I'm just gonna add the building here. Let's go with the card tower because it's the first one here. And just like before, I'm just gonna click this and boost up the pop-up to add other variations. And as you can see, I have only 3 cards here, but that's because it adds multiple copies of this foil prime variant of the card tower, because I had more than 1 copy of that card and it was next on the rarity list. Alright, so let's go to attack. 1 VMD is fine, and then I have some forces here. And the system says that I have wrong numbered cards. This deck comes with 53 cards. Warsaken deck requires exactly 65 cards, of which I mentioned 60 have to be other these playable cards, and 4 have to be the territories, each different type, and 1 has to be a leader. So I get to add a lot more cards here. So I will click this empty slot here and get to my collection. I could start adding cards from here if I wanted to, but what I recommend you to get in a habit of doing is to click this icon here, this hanger here on the side, and pick the sort option, and there is this downward triangle and experience symbol here underneath the rank. And if you click it, you get your cards based on the experience value, which is the way you should be adding cards. Now, this particular card here is a GeForce card. You can only have 1 GeForce card in your deck. So I could add, let's say, one of these. Actually, I like this one more. This black camo version. So, you know, if I click it, I can't add any cards, because I only have 1 GeForce. If I click it and I try to add more cards, it doesn't let me add more cards. But this GeForce card counts as a normal card, so what I can do is to find the empty spot here, click the hanger again, put the experience down and go a bit downward on the list and pick the Robin's prototypes here. And then I will just pick one of these, add them to the deck, and now, since I already got the GeForce, I will only add 3 copies here. Okay. There we go. So I have total of 4 cards. As you notice, this is the first iteration of this client, so there may be some problems. In this case, I had more than 1 copy of single rarity, and I clicked add, and it only added the 2 instead of the 3. It's something that if you are aware of it, it's not a problem. I'm just gonna fast test it if it happens again, so I can give some feedback on it. So let's go, here we go. And 1, 2, 3, yes. And now, oh wait, yeah, it only adds 1. Okay, so if I add more, there we go. So if you have more copies of the second variant which you are adding, it will instead just add those variants instead of going through the cycle, so keep that in mind. And this is bound to be changed, and they fix things pretty fast on Warsaken side. Alright, then I'm just gonna ask the Dexter Smith here. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4 for a total of 4. And you see I have 3 copies of the Camel Edge Dexter Smith, so I just added it as it is. Well, let's put something else here. Let's see. Let's start with the name as Soldier. This is one of my favorite ones. Just start the ball here and click and voila, it has the running cards here. Now as you can see, I have a deck that is fully ready. Anyways, now that this deck is done, you can just click the arrow back here and go to battle if you want, and just click the start match, select your deck, and then just click the key and copy your code and just post it on the Warsaken's Distance strategy chat and find an opponent. I would also like to mention that they said that from the time of this video, in about a week or so, they will add a test version of the auto matchmaking. So this copying aspect will be mostly for custom games, perhaps for streamers and friends, as well as testing. But the auto matchmaking will just match you people as they are online. So that will be a convenient way to do things. As a final say for the deck lists, I keep forgetting that small one. As a final say for the deck lists, if you look at the automated decks, okay, let's just make this update a bit. If you look at the automated decks, most of these recipes are valid, more or less. Let's say this Intel deck here, if I just fill it in, it's pretty decent. The builds aren't that bad, they are not perfect, but no build is perfect. But the deck recipe is not horrible for Intel deck, as an example. For example, when I play Intel, I more or less have this matchup of forces and Intels. I just keep alternating these aspects between Intel and building and weathers with it. So they are pretty solid points of starting out your decks. Just test out if you like them. Just as I mentioned, always, and I mean always, check the leaders and the territories, because highest experience cards are not always the best cards to play. As I mentioned, the sponsors are terrible for Blitz, unless everything else is like 3 or less small, then you can make do with it. But if you just combine something else with it, like the ball blue here, you're more or less gonna lose. Anyway, that's all. I hope the auto build tool is useful for you. I definitely found it pretty decent fun myself. Alright, stay safe everyone, and see you later.